Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Word for Word podcast, a place where we explore the intersection of personal development and faith through audio storytelling. My name is Estelle, and as shared previously on what you can expect as an outlook for the year 2022, we would like to expand our horizon of discovering career stories and faith journeys outside of Malaysia. And praise to him, we finally secure our first breakthrough episode with a high school friend of mine, Clement Ho, a banking and finance professional who relocated to Melbourne, Australia for his studies and early professional career for more than a decade ago. Really, quite some interesting stories that you can expect, which double across his integration experiences and career transitions. So, let's get right into it. Hey Clement, so let me start by saying thank you for making time for our episode today and being part of this conversation all the way from Melbourne, Australia. It's been almost 15 years now living in the land down under. So tell us more about you. Also, what is it like there?
So thanks. It's my first time being on a podcast, so I'm excited, and I hope this would be a fruitful session for us and also your audience, your listeners, whatever you call it in a podcast. So I'm Clement. I'm not sure if that name is in your video title, but so I'm a friend of Estelle since high school, like she mentioned. It's been 20 years. Right now, I'm a white collar professional in Australia, specifically in the banking and finance industry. I've been in this industry all my life across various roles, right, including sales, strategy, portfolio, product, and right now I'm in digital and technology. So that's me. And how is it
Oh,
being in Australia now? It's been I guess uh, it's like home for me now. I've been here for 15 years now, so I'm used to the weather now. 4 seasons. I'm used to the food, and not to mention that I think Australia has so many Asians and Malaysians. So look, it feels like home. It's not that different from KL or Singapore or Hong Kong. It's the same place, same food, same people.
thanks for sharing that. I think that's really wonderful to hear, right? To be able to call a place home and that you feel like home as well with all the interactions that you have with your society. That's cool. And so you mentioned you even call it a second home. Was the transition, let's say, 15 years ago, a natural one? How would you describe that when you came to Australia?
Yeah, so it wasn't easy because I came to Australia at a very young age, right? Usually people come to go overseas when they're 18, 19, 20 years old, partway through college. I came after Form 3. I'm not sure what they call it now, Form 3 or whatever, but I came right after PMR. So I think I was 15 plus at that point. I had no one here, no family members, no family friends, no friends. So it was, uh, a fish in being thrown in an ocean. So it was very different. Um, I went to boarding school for 3 years, so that made it a bit easier. Because you actually live with different people. I guess from the, from different countries as well that is going through the same thing that you are going through. So that was quite nice. I remember, right, almost every Friday, Saturday night, right, it being in a hostel, if you go through the walkway, you'd hear different languages across across the entire hostel, just on the phone, speaking to their parents or their friends or their girlfriends or boyfriends back in their country. So quite interesting, quite nice. I just felt like a small person in a brand new world. It wasn't easy to, I guess, what you call integrate into a new society, but being 15 years old, you don't think too much of this stuff. So I think I was quite lucky in that sense.
It's an age where you are still exploring stuff, where you're still rediscovering who you are, right? And in the avenue of being part of an international community, I think it opens up also a lot of different perspective on how you see things. It's really a blessing, right? If you reflect back that at that point of age, you do not give in to so much thought on, hey, what if I do this and people judge me and things like that. So I think it's really a blessing if I hear your
Yeah,
story, and
yeah,
it's quite cool.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then I think at that age, we didn't have social media at that age. Internet and social media wasn't that embedded in our lives as well. So you do not have that sort of pressure as well. You just go to a new country, experience new things, and it's just so different. You know, you've never seen the world before. You know, I came from the same small town as you, so yeah, it
Yeah,
was nice.
but
It was a good
also,
experience.
yeah, I think also from let's say church community and environment wise, it's also quite different because Malaysia, as we know, our main religion practiced by the country is Muslim, and then in Australia, Christianity is one of the biggest or largest religions and active communities, I would say. How how that actually helped you to further develop your faith journey?
Actually, I wouldn't call. Uh, so I think this would be the same. So Australia and Switzerland, where you are, it will probably be similar. So the majority of the people are Christians, but they're Christian on paper. So that doesn't mean that they go to church. You know, that doesn't mean that they, they communicate with God, right? So, but I was quite lucky that I met a few other peers who are also Christians, and then I remember we were church hunting. One of the churches that we went was Planet Shaker. I'm sure you're familiar. Planet Shakers was really big back then. They had a home church in Melbourne, so I remember we were taking public transport to Planet Shakers every Sunday. It's massive, massive church. Music is loud as well. It's like a concert. It's literally like a pop star concert, but but it was fun. We ended up. I mean, I ended up selling on a smaller church. I think it's mainly a lot of Taiwanese and Singaporeans in that church. Been there for a few years during my high school years, and then in my uni days, I actually stopped going to church for what 1 to 2 years. So that wasn't good. But then I went back to church after I started working. Right now I'm in a what you call a family church. It's not big. It's not like Planet Shakers, but it's decent size. I think it's what 600 members or so. So I've been going there for many years now. It's been okay.
Cool. But thanks for sharing your experience there. I think, yeah, we do have different seasons in our life, and as we walk through, I think what's most important is to know that you can always rely on God, and He's always there. So He has never forsake us. We always go back to Him.
I think you were talking about how different churches would probably be in two different countries, and I actually feel that. So in Malaysia, or in Asian countries, I would say, I think in terms of sermons, right? I think it's very structured. You know, it's very theoretical. Whereas in Western society, in churches, it's less structured. It's always about you say storytelling, right? The speaker would talk about their life, you know, their stories or their friends' stories or whatever, and
Yep.
then what are the learnings. That's something that even now I'm still not used to. I prefer the old school, you know, line by line verses, and then it will be about the speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure there's different styles, and also for me personally, I've experienced various churches when I was back in KL as well. I think being in Switzerland now is a bit difficult because of the place where I live in. There isn't too many English speaking churches, so mostly Swiss German. Therefore, I'm still at the moment attending churches back home, but through online means.
Yeah,
I
it's very
think it's
interesting, right?
yeah,
Different churches would do things very differently, and ultimately it's
exactly.
the same purpose. Do you remember we've got a friend, Ejed? He went to
Yes.
America for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually in, I think, Detroit or some, I forgot which state he was in, but
Mm-hmm.
basically he was in a black area, right? He told me when he went to church
Mm.
he had a massive culture shock. In TV, when you see the black people worshiping, the African Americans worshiping, it's
Mm.
completely different. He had a complete culture shock. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is quite cool, right? Whether it's an on-site experience or now with technology, a lot of reach are also going through online means, and that doesn't deter us from learning his teachings. I think that is a very beautiful thing, and we should also appreciate it. And yeah, I just wanted to also rather fast forward, right? So you mentioned 15 years ago, you then went to Australia, learned how to integrate also with this international community, going to uni, of course, and then graduating and entering the workforce. I think, can you share a bit of your career journey as a finance graduate and maybe walk us through, yeah, how has it been for you?
Yeah, so I did not get into finance intentionally. It was I'll say it was more of a coincidence. So I guess the education system in Australia can be a bit different from Malaysia. So you there's a few exams that you have to take before uni if you want to, I guess, study for specific courses. For example, let's say if you wanted to do medicine, there's an exam that you've got to take while you're in high school. So if you don't take that exam, you can't get into medicine, right? So I was this new kid in a new country, new system, new people, no guidance at all. So I actually missed out on a lot of potential courses that I could attend because I didn't know anything. I didn't go to any exams or courses or anything like that. So I didn't have many choices when it came to uni. I just shortlisted what I did not want to, and I ended up with finance. And it was also one of the shortest course. It was 3 years. I didn't want to study for too long. I don't enjoy studying, so yeah, that's how I got into finance. And then after I graduated, I applied to many many jobs right across different industries. I think I was applying into accounting, finance, financial planning, just plenty of jobs. Right, I think I was going into like risk and stuff as well. I didn't have any jobs for I think 6 to 9 months. I remember I was working in a dumpling shop just to spend time and earn some extra income. But I ended up getting a job in banking in a bank. So that's how I got into banking. I think I also took a gap year in between. I think I took a 6 months holiday before I started working, so that was good. I had some money saved up from working in dumpling shop. So um, ultimately, I got into banking, and then while I was in banking, again, I rotated across different jobs. Whether it's sales, back office, front office. The bank is massive, right? You've got 50,000 employees in a bank. You've got it's a multinational company, so every job's out there. It would be in a bank, right? If you wanted to get into, let's say, marketing or design or risk or legal or anything, they're all in the bank as well. So that's one of the great things in working in a multinational company. All right. So across the past 6 to 7 years, I I've always failed at I guess job interviews. I wouldn't say job interviews. Sorry, I always failed at getting what I wanted in the bank. Job movements were always due to personal connections or just coincidence, being lucky. It's not something that I initially wanted, right? However, what I found is that all of them turned out to be extremely rewarding, right? It can, whether it was a great team, great people to learn from, or it was a lot to learn in that role, and that's something you only find, a few years down the road, right? Or it was a good move on the resume. So looking back, you know, I think a lot of those things happen by coincidence. It almost feels like someone put that into plans. Actually, one interesting thing I remembered was there was this job a few years ago that I really wanted. Um, it was about doing some strategy work for a digital transformation. Right, I didn't get the job, but then 3 months after, the entire team got made redundant. So I thought, okay, good thing I didn't get that job, right? Otherwise, I'll be left with a mortgage and no job. So yeah, things have sort of fallen into place for me in my career so far.
Mm-hmm. And thanks for sharing that. I think it's very interesting because I think a lot of people has this perspective that it's good, right, to enter a multinational company, but I think being in a big company, that also means that you have to really learn how to integrate yourself to the culture that is already at present, because usually these companies are there for quite many years already. So to really be attentive to, yeah, to how people interact, what are some social routines, of course, on top of your professional work. I think that's always been something interesting that I've personally experienced as well. And I like the fact that you shared about your personal career development, right? That especially being a very young, enthusiastic professional, we tend to want to plan our our way, and it's often up. So I'll plan our way up, right, the corporate ladder, and so on. And what you just shared was quite interesting. Is that at most times we don't always get what we plan, and I just want to delve that a little bit more on the example that you shared, that you maybe didn't get it, and not knowing that the team would be made redundant, right? So at that point of time, for sure, you did not know. You just know that it's something very attractive, will be very interesting and fascinating to have it in your CV, right? To really build up that set of skill sets and to have that exposure. How did you navigate through the emotions when they rejected your application?
Oh, so at the start, right, at the start of I would say my career, even before my career, whenever there's a rejection or failures, you would always feel you feel down, right? You feel depressed. You're like, why? And it's a vicious cycle. The more failures or rejections you go through, the less confident you are in yourself, and that really affects you. But then through a lot of experience, right, it, you sort of learn that, hey, sometimes it's just about it's just God closing the door for you, right? It may not be the best thing for you, and I've sort of really experienced that throughout my career. When a door closes, another does open, and that door always leads to a brighter path. So that's been something that I'm living, that I'm, I guess, living by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an interesting take, right? That you also learn from the experience, that you have this faith and hope that this door, although it's disappointing, maybe it's not for me. So God is saying no, or even wait at times where it is the right door, but it might not be the right time. So there are, of course, all these crossroads, I would phrase it, that we will experience. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wanted to also, yeah.
I mean, I was just saying, even if you go back towards like when I first graduated and I was looking for a
Mm,
job, right? I mean, I applied to so many jobs. I got rejected by so many jobs, so many different people, and I ended up getting into banking. But now that I look back, right, I wouldn't do anything else instead of banking. It's something that I'm really good at, and and yeah, I mean, doors are shut, right? at that point of time, you're so disappointed. Like, why can't I find a job? Right? It's been ages. You spend so much time preparing for interviews, tweaking your resumes and whatnot. But then now that you look back, you're like, hey, actually, all these were according to a plan. It's just God shutting different doors for you to get into the right door.
Yep, and for sure he knows the gifts that has imparted in you much better than you and I do. And therefore I think that's always wonderful to look back and you would see then the dots are connected in the end. But I think of course it's easier said than done, right? And now that it's easier to look back than to look forward, knowing that things are not sure how they would turn out. I think the pandemic, in an example, has taught us very much how uncertainties can be very daunting, how things can really be out of our control, and we also can't do a lot about it. So there are a lot of it humbles us, all these experiences, I would say, and it, it is in all these weaknesses that we experience that we also see that his strength is the ultimatum that will never change. And sometimes in the high of things we tend to forget that, but it is like I said in the times of low and weaknesses where his goodness is the most obvious, and that is indeed something we should appreciate more.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'd like to add, you mentioned that these failures, it
mm,
humbles us, but also add that it also strengthens our faith in Him. So when nothing's going right, all you have is your faith in Him. Like, you've got nothing else. There's no other choice. All you can do is trust in Him. And when it eventually does come through, you know that it's all Him, right? It's nothing else. So it does humbles you, and it also does strengthen you.
Yep. And I like how you say it's nothing else, it's just him, because at times like this, a lot of noise are more or less removed, right? And you know that you have tried a lot of things, trying to keep things under control, trying to influence it, but in the end, it didn't work. So yeah, I think that's a really compelling argument that we should always seek him first, so not to again go through this need of controlling things, which can be difficult because human beings like to do that. We feel that we like to control things and stuff. But I mean, just to bring in a candid example, like it sometimes is quite refreshing to not know what is in store for us next. For example, if you were to watch a movie, you also wouldn't want to have spoilers. At first, right, you want to really go through that experience of how the storytelling is done, and there you really get the money's worth from your movie ticket. So at least
Oh,
that's
that's a very good example. I didn't think of that, but that's a really good one. Um, and I also wanted to ask you about your own experience, right? Whether you've felt particularly lost at one point in your career or before your career. Is it similar
yeah.
for
I
you?
think I would say there are aspects of similarity, especially in the view of uncertainties and the need for control. So that's for sure is similar. But I guess it was a very different context for me. So I could for sure share a little bit. So it happened exactly 2+ years ago. So when I was still in my company in the IT department, but was back in Kuala Lumpur. And at that time, it felt like I was in the process of finishing my master's. So I was already trying to plan ahead what would be next after, let's say, finishing my part-time master's. From a career perspective, what should I explore next? Because there's always this tendency to maybe explore more and also to do something a little bit different, right? To be out of comfort zone. So just to share, I'm a person that is quite fearful that I will be in my comfort zone, especially for too long, because that means that I'm also not learning, and I might just be stuck in the thick of things and not improving. So that's a bit of my personality. And at that time, I was, let's say, being a planner. I like to see even 2 3 steps ahead, right? What would that mean? Maybe which assignments which would I be considering and how to do that. But in the knack of things, I soon realized very soon that things didn't even go according to the plan, not even the first step. And that there was a lot of frustration, like how you share, right? There was always this disappointment and frustration that hey, things are not going according to my plan. I feel stuck. What else can I do? And there's always this tendency to try to solve it with our human abilities, which is not necessarily the correct way. And that led me to, let's say, reflecting, also seeking God. In those times that I said, God, I've tried many things. Can you give me some guidance and signs on what I can do, or if I'm even asking the right question, if the next steps is even what I should look into, or is there something else? So there is this time of reflection, and long story short, God again does his plan in his miraculous way. He opened doors that I didn't even know existed. Um, so, for example, going to this, having this opportunity to work abroad in Switzerland was something that I know is possible, but I was looking more of a 1 year assignment. And he was through his ways telling me that hey, if you want to go abroad, 1 year is not sufficient to really get the experience itself. So he even marked it up to 3 years, which caught me off guard, to be honest. And I was like, am I even ready for this? So there was this, yeah, I don't know, debate, right? That you want something, and when it's even to a more extreme extent, you feel that you're not ready. So the imposter syndrome and stuff like that came in, and I think that whole journey itself for me was a learning. Nevertheless, it turns out always better than planned and always better than expected. And yeah, so that's a bit of my sharing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that all of us would go through. I think all
Mm,
young adults will go through. Whether if it's whether when you first finish studying, or whether you're looking for work, or whether you're
mm,
a young professional looking for other jobs. You're not happy with your current job. You think you know what you want, but you actually don't know what's the best for you. You can feel very lost. Um,
mm,
you go on social media, you see all your friends and everyone else doing well. You wonder what's wrong with you. You get this pressure as well. But
mm,
I think we both can agree that God knows you more than you know yourself, right? He knows what will be the best
mm.
for you. He knows the
Yep.
world more than you as well. It works in
Amen.
mysterious way. It would be good if if you look up the sky, and then he writes his message to you in a cloud, right? I mean, but
Mm.
that's not
Yeah,
how it
why
works,
can't it be that
unfortunately.
straightforward, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So
Yeah, but I think he, like you said, he knows us better than we do. And I think that's also the reason why he does not explicitly write the instructions in the skies, or let's say how we see our development would be. Because I guess also reflecting, right, he did share a lot of his the way and the teachings in the Bible, right? It's so comprehensive, and it still stands today despite all the different circumstances and times that we're in. But again and again, we do not go really back to even what was written. We tend to even challenge it with our, I don't know, intellectual minds, and we think that hey, this is not relevant anymore and stuff like that. So I think he really knows how to teach us, which is important, not through very explicit instructions, which he also provides us through the Bible, but also through a lot of all these experiences and encounter. And I think that's really the characteristic of a great teacher.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this isn't a destination as well. I think it's more of a journey. Like even right
Mm,
now, right? Even years after being uh, working, right? It's been many years, 6 to 7 years. I'm still lost. I still don't know what I want to do. I still don't know what's best for me. Where we want to go to. I'm quite sure you can relate to this as well. So I think it's never ending. But you start to trust in him. You learn how to trust in him and just believe in his plans. So I think that's very encouraging for me anyway.
mm.
It comforts me a lot more.
Yeah, and I think that goes well with being part of a church community or fellowship, because then you get to do life together in different seasons. As you said, it's always learning, and we as humans we tend to sometimes forget again, and then need some support and reminder, and that's always how we would do better and better um, with His grace. I think yeah, we also talked a bit before this episode when we caught up with each others. Um, I was I always have the question then what's next for you, Clement? Because we're at the let's say I would say even prime of really looking into to growing our careers, taking it to the next step since we have a couple of experience outside of university now. So what's really installed next for you?
Yeah, so I'm joining a startup in 2 months' time. It literally wasn't planned at all. I just had an ex colleague reach out to me, asking me if
Mm,
I wanted a job. I was like, and yeah, I'll be joining a completely different company and people, bit of a different industry as well.
mhm,
In 2 months' time, and I'm quite excited. It will be a big change for me personally. It's a different role as well. So this is I've always been in I guess finance, product manager in finance. Finance, investment, things like that. This role is a technology role. I'll be a product owner working on digital products. So it's a 180-degree change.
wow, I mean, thanks first for sharing this very exciting news. I think I could even call it fresh from the oven because it just happened recently. And yeah, I think it's really exciting. And if I recall from your sharing in the earlier part of this episode, you were at one point of your time in your career looking forward to be part of digital transformation, right, in your, let's say, now previous company. And the role of product owner for, yeah, for finance product fits, I could even say fits exactly to what you desired.
Yeah, and it came into place. I wouldn't have
Mm,
gotten this role if I didn't have various experience back in my entire career that I didn't really want it. So if you think about it, it all makes sense. Like it's pieces of puzzles coming into place.
yeah, and I mean, I have also interactions with a couple of my mentor, and they always emphasize that, especially in our age around 20 plus, it's always more important to sharpen up your skill sets, right, than to really go for the benefits and so on, or the titles. So to really be equipped with all the different experiences, the exposure, and in your case, in even various functions, right, front and back office, even, yeah, I think that really helps you to grow as a person, and of course to prepare you for where God see you fit best. And really excited again for your new role. I think it's gonna be a steep learning curve for sure. So that is expected, but I think you just have to enjoy the process of it. And yeah,
Yeah, I'm fully trusting in
Enjoy
him
it.
and see
Yeah.
see 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 where it takes me. Like I'm going in with
Mm-hmm.
zero expectation, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a good attitude to have.
Yes. Cool. Cool. So that's very nice, and I assume this position is also in Melbourne.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So my next question would be, I think, a pretty standard question that you often get, right? Being a born Malaysian, any plans that to some point of time you would return to Malaysia and
Yes, there are plans. I mean, there is a
mhm,
plan, but again, I don't know. I don't know if it will come through or not. Right? I'm just going where it takes me. I mean, I thought I was gonna go back to Malaysia after I graduated. It didn't happen.
mhm,
I thought I was going back a few years ago when I had another job offer in Malaysia. It didn't happen. So I'm not sure if it will happen or not. But eventually, I feel that uh, God may want me to go back to Malaysia.
mhm.
I've got that. I've got that feeling.
Mm. So trust in his timing, I guess.
Yeah, trusting
Since
his
he just
timing. That's
opened
right.
this door
Yeah.
for you, having embraced it, and yeah, for sure he would let you know when the time is right.
Hmm.
Cool, and thanks for sharing so much of your career backstory and also what's upcoming for you next. I think that's really really cool, and I think this is something that we would try in today's episode, which I haven't tried in previous Word for Work guest speaker. So we'll go through a series of rapid fire questions, maybe two or three questions, and yeah, just answer candidly or spontaneously so that our listeners also get to know about you more. So my first question would be, who's your favorite character in the Bible and why?
Uh, is saying Jesus cheating?
Nope, there's no.
All right. So if answering Jesus is not cheating, I'll go with Jesus because everything he says makes so much sense and it's things that I haven't thought of before. So yeah, my answer is Jesus.
Right, cool. Next question. What's your favorite worship song?
Light of the world. No reason, just light of the world. It's been in my head for the past, in the past what 15-20 years.
Okay, then I would say the final one. How do you distinguish a no or a wait in prayer?
A no or a wait in prayer. Uh,
Mm,
oh, that's a tough one. To me it's the same thing, right? To me it's not a yes, so God's telling you to hold, right? It can be a no, it can be a wait, we don't know, but it's basically God telling us to hold. So I don't differentiate between them.
mhm,
To me it's just either hey go ahead or hold, right? Hold can mean wait, can mean no, but it's the same to me. Sorry it
mhm.
didn't answer your question, but
It's okay. It's to a bit test the. Yeah, it should be an authentic sharing, so there's no right or wrong answer.
wait, what about you? So who's your favorite Bible character?
My favorite character, I wouldn't say favorite at this point of time because I'm really catching up on the Bible reading this year, so that is one of my targets. But I quite admire Moses at the moment. I think he has always a series of challenges that is presented to him, and that he doesn't even have a choice to say no. I don't wanna. I don't want to address these challenges. So a lot of mandate and expectation was just placed for him, and he has a very stubborn group of people to lead. But again and again, I know he is human like all of us and has his mistakes, but he is someone that shows a lot of grit and persistency, even to a point that he knows that he's not even able to see the promised land before he leaves this world. But yet, he still stay faithful to the Lord and let's say do his best to lead the people. Not easy, but I would say if he's living in our time, he will be one of the iconic leaders of today.
I agree with you.
But yeah, that's at least one of the characters that I think is a very interesting character at the moment. Cool. So as we're nearing the end of our episode, what would you advise our listeners, especially when they're still in the midst of navigating through uncertainties, like what we have both shared, and how would you advise them on how to step really into our purpose in His presence?
Yeah, so I'd say, you know, we, both me and SL, we completely understand how lost you can feel at times, how confused you can be at times, but you just have to trust him, right? It's through his will, his power, that he knows you more than you know yourself. He knows the world more than you know. So you just need to put your trust in him, and everything will work out. That's my advice.
Yes, and amen. So thank you once again, Clement, for your very cool sharing and conversation. So may this story be an inspiration to all our listeners out there. And if you know someone from your circles or friends or even family that may resonate to Clement's story, really pay it forward by passing it on so that we may all experience his goodness and enjoy this wonderful blessing. So once again, to all our listeners, thanks for tuning into Word for Word, and we'll see you in our next episode. Take care and God bless.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to this week's release of Word for Word.
Do follow us on our socials and subscribe for more content.
And we'll see you in our next episode.
Bye-bye.